views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
Welcome to The Karmic Path with your hosts, Tina Erwin and Laura Van Tyne. Join us as we dive into the normal and the paranormal to break through the darkness and to help you realize how karma, spiritual law, and psychic ability all combine to open the doors of understanding. This is the place where we build the karmic connections between science, psychology, and spirituality. But can we change our karmic path? Can we help someone else's karma? Stay tuned and join us for an opportunity to look at life and spirituality from a down-to-earth, no-nonsense, practical perspective. The Karmic Path radio show with Laura and Tina, Better Karma for Better Living, starts now.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Tina Erwin, and this is Laura Van Tyne. I'd like to start this by reminding everyone that our passion is karma. Everyone has a karmic path, whether we're aware of it all at all or not. We don't live in a bubble. Every person's actions and reactions echo out and often collide. Our passion is to offer you a new way of looking at life so that perhaps you can improve your karmic path.
Well said.
Every week.
All right. So for the month of February, we're giving away books to people who either sign up to join our email list at thekarmicpath.com, or if you are watching us on Facebook Live at Transformation Talk Radio or thekarmicpath.com. So if you're watching us live, please say hi. And if you're listening on the website, go ahead and sign up for the email, and you'll get an email about once a month if you're lucky.
Yeah, get hot.
We don't send out a lot of emails. All right. So this week's book winners are C.K. Frost and Courtney Renee. C.K. is from California and Courtney is from Michigan. So you'll be receiving a book in the mail from us that's a signed copy of The Lightworker's Guide to Healing Grief. All right. This week's topic is, what church do ghosts attend? And this title came up for a number of reasons. But before we even get started as to why, let me tell you, when I was promoting this on social media,
they were not kind.
They were not kind. We had a lot of deeply religious people that took offense. They were calling us demonic. They were telling us that we're dealing in witchcraft, and we were rebuked by the way, in the name of Jesus. I don't know if I told you that one.
Yeah, that was a little bit scary.
And, other people said that there's no such thing as a person not crossing over. So first of all, we're going to be talking about what makes a person become a ghost. We're going to be talking about the science behind it. And we're also going to be talking about our own experiences, because Tina and I do talk to the dead. We're not based in witchcraft.
I'd like to point out that
we don't need to be rebuked.
No, I'd like to point out that this isn't the 16th century either. And that between the 16th and the 17th century, 1 million men, women, and children were murdered for witchcraft. I certainly like to think in the 21st century, we have surely gotten past that, especially since those who so deeply believe in the Bible believe in what the Bible says. And if you look at the 23rd Psalm, lo, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. There's something going on there. And one of the things that Laura and I did was a lot of research, in addition to talking to a lot of dead people, to figure out, why does it say that? And that you need thy rod and thy staff comfort me. Why would you need that? And that, when you can connect to the divine, your soul is restored. He restoreth my soul forever. What does that mean? It means that you cross over, and those bits and pieces of you that felt like they were broken in mortal life are restored when you're in the heaven world. And so for the person who wrote in and said that we were really bad people because we believe in ghosts.
There were two of them.
I'd like to thank them for that, because that gave us an opportunity to open this door to, this isn't the 16th century. And if this were the 16th century, we would have met a very horrific death. And so I'd like to think that we can open our hearts and minds in a different way and not look at it that way.
All right. And so if we take a mini history lesson throughout the history of this planet, no matter where you are in the world, if you are in India 500 BC, if you're in Ireland 1200 AD, if you're in South Africa, the United States, wherever
Native
you're
Americans talk about the ancestors.
Every culture and every language has terms for the word ghost, angels, demons. If they don't exist, why is that?
And if they don't exist, where did Dickens get the whole idea for, Ebenezer Scrooge and what he saw?
Right. So there is a pattern of these concepts of ghosts, and we all have heard of places that are haunted or this or that. Why is that if they don't exist? If a place is haunted, does that mean it's the devil's lair? Does that mean no? There's some type of energy there that is stuck. And so we're going to be talking about this, but we're also going to give a ghost. A ghost is a soul who...
Give a ghost a definition.
We're going to define a ghost. Thank you. A ghost is a person, it used to be a human, who's left their physical mortal body. They've shed their shell. We rent these things. These are not ours to keep
just
forever.
Like crabs. They shed their shell and they move to a different body.
Right. It's like...
I saw that on Blue Planet today.
Oh, very good. And it's like, going to the clothing store and today I want to look like this or look like that. It's kind of the same concept spiritually when we're in between incarnations. So these bodies are merely rental units, but we need to take good care of them at the same time. And
it's what Christ meant when he said life everlasting.
Not death everlasting.
It's not death everlasting.
All right. And the other part that we want to bring when we're talking about these ghosts, these are souls who are stuck between heaven and earth. These ghosts still have the same emotions, the same feelings, the same desires as they did when they were living in a physical body.
And when you think about it, and you think about people who hunt ghosts, would you want your child who died at the age of 2, would you want someone hunting down your child or your beloved grandmother? Do you want her hunted down? Or your dad who died in Iraq? Do you want somebody hunting him down too? No, the answer is no. You want someone to show them compassion, or maybe you'd like to learn how to help them yourself. So you don't need a medium. That's really what we're trying to do, is teach the living how to help the dead.
We do have, besides the karmicpath.com, we do have another website called ghosthelpers.com. Spelled like just the way it sounds, ghosthelpers.com. And there are a bunch of tools that you can use if you feel like you're being haunted by, it could be a loved one or it could be a location. There's some tools that you can use that are free to help cross them over.
I had a client many years ago who was a medical record administrator. That meant that she managed the medical records for a particular hospital, and she had 3 or 4 hospitals that she worked with. And I remember her telling me that she was just desperate for help because everywhere she went in these hospitals, for some reason, the dead sought her out. That's what always creeps me up about ghost hunters. They never look in hospitals. They're searching these odd buildings, but they're in hospitals.
I've never had to look for a ghost. They always find me.
So this woman said, I don't want to turn a blind eye, but I don't know what to do with all these people who come at me.
It's exhausting.
It was just exhausting for her. I mean, it's happened to me, and I know it's happened to you. And so I gave her a really powerful prayer, and she always called upon an angel. And we're going to be discussing that in March, how to call upon an angel. And she was able to cross over in every hospital every week, all the dead who came to her.
Imagine the spiritual service, though, what that does.
Imagine the compassion, the caring, and the love. She didn't know these people. She didn't judge these people. She helped them without any expectation of reward or return. She helped them because that's the kind of person that she was. I always, think really highly of her for wanting to do that. I
remember one time I was at the doctor's office with one of my kids, and there was a little boy ghost. He was about 7, and he had all these tubes on him. and he had been at the hospital, and he was grabbing me by the leg, begging me for his mommy. He didn't know he was dead.
That's another problem. If you have people this happened in a tsunami recently in Indonesia, another one. People were hit so suddenly, there was no earthquake. The next thing they know, they're dead because there is a massive tsunami. You're not really sure what happened to you. You're dead. Or this several dams gave way in Minas Gerais in Brazil over the last 2 weeks. These people were instantly...
You're walking down the street, and the next thing you know, you're dead. But you don't know you're dead because you don't know what happened. And that's a problem. And that's one of the reasons why ghosts get stuck between dimensions. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and write to us at questions@thekarmicpath.com. Or we're also checking our Facebook live feeds today. So please go ahead and say hi, and you can register to be in the drawing for a book. And when we come back, we're going to read a wonderful letter that we got from a listener asking us a lot of amazing questions.
And you're listening to The Karmic Path on Transformation Talk Radio.
Welcome back to the Karmic Path radio show on Transformation Talk Radio. I'm Laura Van Tyne, and this is Tina Erwin. And before we get started with this letter, I also want to mention that Tina has a trilogy of books out called Ghost Stories from the Ghost Point of View. And this is a trilogy combined singly or all together. Ghost Stories from the Ghost Point of View. These are all true ghost stories. Each book has 21 unique, true, personal ghost stories as to why that soul did not cross over and the lessons that were learned from each story. All right, Tina, go ahead. And this letter came into us, and I think this is a fantastic letter because it discusses what a lot of people are thinking and wondering when it comes to spirituality, religion, and ghosts.
Yeah, this is a woman from Missouri. Her name is Echo, and she did give us permission to use her name and to use her letter. And she is a very Christian woman, but she fell in love with the ghost books. And she wrote a letter, and I thought it was just the sweetest letter. So I'm going to read it directly. Hello, Echo here, mother of 5 and a wife to one husband of 16 years. Okay, so I read your Ghost Stories book, and I loved it. But being a Christian, I am under the impression that accessing the dead is taboo. In my younger years, I knew I was sensitive and often struggled with it. Now it's been years and I just shut it off, or maybe I really wasn't ever that sensitive to begin with. So my question is, 1, are you a believer in the birth, the death, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ? And she said, I am. And I just wonder, if I help the dead in crossing over, am I committing a sin? I guess I was brought up to believe that being involved in anything to do with the spirit world is bad. Yet I've always been drawn to it, and I have had a very deep interest in it. I put all that on the back burner when I had kids, but then I saw this book and I had to read it. So grateful. Now I wonder if by doing these things, if I would be violating my relationship with Christ and our good Lord. I get the feeling that you do believe in God and Jesus. Anyway, I hope you find the time to answer my email. I'm sure you're very busy. I am very busy, but I'm not too busy to answer that email because it's a really great set of questions.
It is. One of the things that she says is, being taboo to access the dead. First of all, we don't access the dead.
No, it's not like I'm a naval officer. It's not like I wanted to have this happen to me. It's what happened to you. And
life is what happens when you're busy making other plans.
And I had a lot of other plans. I had so many. And so
talking to dead people all the time?
Dead people was not on the hit parade.
Okay.
So what I told her was that I believe with all my heart that Jesus Christ was in fact born on earth, and that he came here not so much to die for our sins, but to show us the way of love and goodness and the concept of life everlasting, of love and compassion, of moving into the heaven world to be one with God. You cannot spend years. I mean, I've been at this for an unfortunately very long time, And if your heart doesn't fill with compassion at the things that the dead tell you, nothing will. I helped someone recently this past weekend cross over their son who took his own life. And she was very courageous. And I talked to someone else a couple hours later whose husband is in the dying process. And so she's going to be using the crossing over prayer because she wants the best for her husband. She's empowered. I believe
I'm going to stop you for a moment. The crossing over prayer that Tina's talking about is found on ghosthelpers.com, and it's free to use. And frankly, it's been around for a few years now. And
since 2012.
The results and the feedback we get from this prayer have been absolutely amazing. And they've been from all over the world. And when you can either have Tina, you can do the YouTube and have Tina say it, or you can say it yourself. When you say it yourself, you want to use authority and conviction in your voice, and you want to make sure that you say right now, because there is no time in that dimension. So we want to be specific. That tool is free for anybody to use.
And I feel that echoes question that can you be a very Christian person and still have psychic ability? And my answer is, of course you can. And you can be Jewish, and you can be Hindu, and you can be Buddhist, and you can be Muslim, and you can be New Age. You can be
Green Alien.
You can be any faith. That's really why the title of the show, what church do ghosts go to? Because there's no religion in the afterlife. There is only the connection that each of us is going to want to have to the divine.
And the way to get that connection to the divine is not to linger in that fourth dimension as a ghost.
When my brother died almost 2 years ago, I immediately crossed him over. It was one of the most poignant things that I had to do. But, I'm not immune. Death comes to my family too.
My dad had died, I guess it's over 10 years ago, but he died and he was a ghost, and he lived with us as a ghost for almost 2 years because I didn't know what to do. And it was heartbreaking because I didn't know how to help him. And finally I was able to help him. And,
and you got a sidekick in the process.
Yeah. I had been to countless psychics, countless churches, religious institutions, spiritual centers, looking for help for, not only my dad, but a bunch of other ghostly souls as well. And my dad stood there as a sentinel at one of my daughter's sides for years, trying to protect her from some of these darker elements that were trying to invade our home. And it was heartbreaking because I didn't know what to do or how to help him, but I knew he was there. And
that is the point. If you are in a house or you are in a hospital, my husband had an issue and he was in the hospital many years ago. It wasn't the 5 times he had 5 knee surgeries. It was a different time.
He only has 2 knees, but he had
5 knee surgeries. And the dead came at me in this cloud of darkness. And I felt like I was being crushed. I can't make that up.
No. And, the paranormal investigating people, all you got to do is go to a hospital. You can go to a liquor store,
a funeral parlor, a bar. Oh my gosh, there's so
everywhere.
many.
You don't
so
have
many
to lock
ghosts
yourself
and
up
bars.
into some dark jail.
Yeah. So I want to thank Echo for writing in, and I want to encourage anyone else that has a question like that, because we really do want to answer those.
And frankly, I'm going to speak for Christ on this one.
No ego there.
If there was a soul that was lost, why would he want to punish you for helping them? I guess that's my thing.
If you're showing compassion to another soul, how could that possibly be wrong? If you are seeking to connect that soul to Christ,
back home,
send them home to connect to the heaven world where they're receiving healing and love. I mean, we've had people that we crossed over. You did this one. Guy is in a wheelchair. He doesn't know he's not crippled in death.
That was an interesting one. He died and he was in a wheelchair, but he didn't know how to go to the light because he was waiting for the person who was always with him to help him with mobility to cross him over, but they're still living. So he would have lingered forever if he hadn't have found me. So it's the stories that we have are absolutely crazy, but they make so much sense at the same time.
And I want to also qualify one thing that the first lady who wrote to you on Facebook and echoes
The
email
one who rebuked me,
that rebuked you, is that obviously religions don't want people to do dark things
or dabble in gray magic
or black magic.
Yes.
And I absolutely understand
Yes.
that. I couldn't agree more.
Yes.
Because it causes so much harm, so much pain. At the same time, you do want people to help you, and you can't be afraid of it. I think that's another thing that happens when people look at ghosts and they look at, oh my gosh, these people are connecting to the spirit world.
All right, let's talk about spirit before we go to commercial.
Okay.
This is a word or a term that is so misused, overused, that it becomes dangerous. When people are talking about spirit, oh, I've connected to spirit, or oh, I have a spirit with me. Unless you define what it is, you're not going to know what it is, and you're not going to know how to deal with it. In this fourth dimension, the land where ghost resides, there's a lot of evil in that land as well. And we have to be able to discern and differentiate who's who and what's what.
I think it's important to understand some of the mechanics. We know the first law of thermodynamics is that energy is neither created nor destroyed. So the energy that's you has to go somewhere at death. And this is proven, again, with science by Kirlian photography, which can see a soul, the energy that was you, leave the body. So where does that energy go? It goes into the fourth dimension. The fourth dimension,
It's like the way station.
Well, it's like a step up transformer. If here's the fifth dimension and you're in the third, which is kind of scuzzy sometimes, I hate to say that. So you're in this transfer dimension, but if you're weighed down with a lot of other things, making that leap to hyperspace in the fifth dimension is going to be a little bit tough. You're going to need some help.
Right.
And so that's really...
And that's what the 23rd Psalm was about, by the way.
That's exactly why the 23rd Psalm was written. And I want to point out that the 23rd Psalm exists in the religious teachings of every faith on the planet. And there's a reason for that. And the reason is that maybe whoever wrote these texts, these ancient texts, understood that maybe we might need assistance when we're at the point of crossing over. And so we have another really cool story.
We'll be right back. You're listening to The Karmic Path on Transformation Talk Radio. And if you have a question or comment, please write into questions at thekarmicpath.com.
Welcome back to The Karmic Path on Transformation Talk Radio. Laura has a very interesting story, another interesting story before we go into our big story that was the whole point of the show.
We have stories. About a year ago or so, I received a message on Facebook by somebody saying, I think you can help me. And she said, I read your bio and I'm looking for help. So I responded with, okay. And she said that, my brother had committed suicide and I know he's with me. My grandfather was a preacher, and he would always tell us that if we could see spirits, they're in hell, and that we could go to hell for communicating with them. And I'm not sure I should really be talking to you, but I don't know what to do because I love my brother. And the first thing I had told her is, well, you love your brother, so the compassionate thing to do is to try to help him because you have noticed that he hasn't crossed over. And when somebody commits suicide, 99.9% of the time, they don't cross over for many reasons.
They don't feel worthy.
They don't feel worthy.
A lot of times they don't feel worthy of God's love.
And they feel guilty. They may realize that their actions hurt you terribly, and they don't cross over. And a lot of times when somebody commits suicide, they're in such a deep and heavy depression. It's like being inside of a huge fog bank, and you put your hand in front of your face and you can't even see your hand. It's so dense and foggy there. How could you possibly see the light to figure out where to go? And there is a crossing over prayer specifically for suicide victims at ghosthelpers.com. I digress a little bit. So we're talking and I said, well, let's, work together and, let's see what we can find. And as I'm helping her out, who should show up but her grandfather, who was a preacher. He did not cross over. And I thought that was just slightly ironic.
Slightly, just a little bit.
So he didn't cross over, but he also had about 20 or 30 parishioners with him also. It was almost like they were like a group ghost karmic thing.
The group karma.
And none of them had crossed over. And when we did cross them over, and when my client did see that they crossed over and her brother crossed over, they were all eternally grateful. And the pastor grandfather turns around and says, "I was so wrong. And thank you."
We get a lot of thank yous from them when you do this.
We do. And the moral of the story is anybody could not cross over. And we don't want to make it sound doom and gloom, but use the crossing over prayer if you're ever in doubt.
Okay, on to a fun story.
Okay.
Every now and then, Laura and I go to the Southwest, to the Flagstaff area, and then
we call it a business retreat.
It's a business retreat.
And it is. It really is.
And it gives us a chance to really clear our head. And being in the American Southwest is truly enriching, and it restores you on multiple levels. And on this particular trip, we're going to a place called Page, Arizona. And you go to Flagstaff and you sort of head northeast and you end up in Page. And the claim to fame of Page, Arizona are the slot, S-L-O-T, slot canyons. And
which are amazing.
They are a natural wonder, and it's how floodwaters move through these canyons in these astounding ways with these amazing colors, and the sand carves this beautiful abstract designs, and the canyons change from season to season based on how much water goes through them. And that's why they're called, the water just goes through this
and it's
chute.
all in Navajo land.
It's all in Navajo land, and they're very careful of it, and they control it to make sure people don't do some of the dumb things that people do. No graffiti. It is very rigidly controlled. Thank goodness. I am grateful to the Navajo for their care. Well, as we're driving into this town, and this town of Page has 7,326 people, because there's a sign outside that says, sorry, just using my hands again. The population is...
I'll bring duct tape next week, people.
7,326 people. And as you drive in, on the right-hand side of the road, there are 12 churches side by side, separated by
different religious institutions.
Separated by
in fact,
a parking lot.
I had to make you drive back so we could count from the start, because it was so amazing, and they're all perfectly manicured.
Perfectly manicured, and they each have their individual sign. And it just was mind-boggling. I mean, I grew up in the South in North Carolina, and there are many churches on many street corners in that state.
And what are the first two questions you're asked in the South?
What church do you go to, and what does your daddy do? But other than that, and so what got me was, there's got to be a 13th house of God, and it is that it's
the slot canyons.
It's the slot canyons, because you've got 12 different belief systems, but when you add it all up,
they all have the same beliefs.
These are 12 Christian churches who all believe that their belief and focus is the only right one. And yet they each believe in a virgin birth. They believe that there's heaven and a hell, and that we're all sinners. They believe in the power of prayer. Your turn.
Oh, okay. They believe in the ancient miracles of, way back when. They believe in the New Testament and the Bible. They believe in the concept that Christ died for our sins.
They believe in the 10 Commandments.
The 10 Commandments, the philosophy that Jesus loves us all.
They believe that their buildings of wood and stone are the only ones that can truly honor God. And they believe that their version of the Bible is the true version. They believe in Christmas and Easter and the resurrection. But if you don't believe what they believe exactly, then you're probably going to go to
somewhere
very dark place. But they believe in the same God.
Same thing. And so what we're talking about here is, these churches also have goodness within them. They create communities, they create, support systems for one another. Those are all great things. But what we're really focusing in on is spirituality and what can we do with that. So you're listening to The Karmic Path on Transformation Talk Radio, and we'll be back shortly.
We're not leaving. We have another 4 minutes.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Okay. You can tell this is a live show and we're still a little new at this.
You hit me with your elbow and I thought, I was like, oh, it's commercial time.
No, sorry. It's not commercial time. So
we're not going to be right back.
We're not going to be right back. What we're trying to say is that when we talked about this actually for hours and hours, that all of these people in this town all drive up in their vehicles and they have a menu of which church to go to, but once you've picked one, you can't jump to another one, or you probably would be suspect if you tried one out each week. You went to a different one. And I just found that to be completely astounding. And if you were to ask the individuals who were going to each of these 12 churches, they would probably tell you that theirs is the right one, that theirs is the only one. And I remember in college that this young girl said to me, you're going to hell because you don't go to my church. And I said, yes, but you live in Lenore and I live in Greensboro. So how could I possibly get to your church? And if some kid lives on an island in the Pacific and never heard of your church, she said, yes, but he's still going to hell because that's what my church says. And I said, does that not just seem a little
cruel? It's cruel.
Slightly illogical.
And not all churches are like this. Thank goodness.
No, a lot of them are leaving that mindset. But if you grew up with that mindset, and obviously the woman who wrote us when we first started the show believed in that mindset, that this has to be, if you believe, it was a much longer Facebook comment that you had to believe in.
I got shredded.
If you had to believe in her faith and then be saved through the auspices of her faith, then that was the only way. But if you never heard of her faith, would Christ be that judgmental, or would the love of what is Christ, the essence of his message, be the same? And the essence of his message is the same message you get from the Buddha. He was once asked by, I think it was a person who was trying to decide what faith they should be. And there were many people of many faiths in the room, and they asked the Dalai Lama, not the Buddha, they asked the Dalai Lama, what should they do? And he said, then he suggested that each person, if they loved their faith, be the best of their faith. Be the best representative, the kindest, most compassionate person, and represent their faith in that way. And if you were to do that, then the trappings of a particular label of a faith would actually probably fade away. You wouldn't need it.
Right. It becomes elevated.
And so I think the point of that is that, there were 12 houses. And to me, the 13th was the beauty and the majesty of the Slot Canyons.
Of the nature of God.
The nature, God created nature. Einstein wanted to study God's nature and how God created nature. And that was Einstein's concepts, because he devoutly believed in the physics of how God worked. Okay, now it's your turn.
We'll be right back. You're listening to The Karmic Path on Transformation Talk Radio, and we'll see you soon. Welcome back to The Karmic Path on Transformation Talk Radio. This time she did elbow me for a reason.
We're still a little new at this.
Yeah, that's okay. We want to start off with reminding people to please go ahead and sign up for the newsletter at thekarmicpath.com and say hi to us on Facebook Live. We will be doing a random book drawing based on those names that pop up there. So we've had a couple of winners this past week, Courtney and CK. So we'll be getting in contact with them shortly. All right. We've been talking about ghosts, what makes a person a ghost. And I think we need to elaborate on some aspects of why ghosts our soul may not cross over.
One of my favorite stories was one of my clients said that she came to me for another reason, for many times. And then one time she came and she said, my mother-in-law died. And I said, okay, how are you feeling about that? Because it can kind of go either way. And she said, this woman went to church 4 times a week, twice on Sunday. Truly, she did. She was very, very Christian. Everyone adored her. She was kind and gentle, generous to a fault. And I can feel her with me, and we have to do something. So we worked together, and we're actually able to talk to her mother-in-law. And she said, well, I was born in sin and I died in sin. So why would God want me? And I thought, oh my gosh, I bet your religion didn't know that's how you felt. It's just, she said, and I said, yes, but you've done good works all of your life. No one's perfect in a mortal body. She said, yeah, but I was born in sin and I died in sin, and I'm a sinner and I'm going to hell because it's hellfire and brimstone. That's what my preacher said over and over and over and over again. And I said, well, I just really do hate to be the person that contradicts your minister, your preacher, your reverend, whatever. But, I don't think that we can continue to have that label because we have an opportunity here. And do you see this beautiful angel standing next to you, which I asked to come in and join you? And she said, yeah, but that angel can't be for me because I'm a sinner. I mean, she must have said this 52 times.
Wow.
And I said, well, you're not mine to judge. You're not, the angel is not going to judge you. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask this angel to help you cross this light bridge and cross you over into the heaven world right now. And she did. And then my client said she could feel her leave. Everything felt different after this very lovely woman crossed over. And she was so stunned that it was actually possible to be able to feel that divine light.
Yeah. I want to, this is the karmic path, and I want to throw a concept out there. And that is, maybe we're not born in sin, but maybe we're born in karma. We're born with the karma that we've incurred from past lifetimes, things that we need to work out, things that we need to grow and learn from. What if we're simply born in karma?
And what you do in each lifetime either puts in your karmic bank account really positive things or really negative things.
And sometimes they're neutral.
And sometimes it can go either way. But if you cross over and you kind of take your bank book with you, then you have an opportunity to sit down with counselors of divine wisdom and these amazing beings who will guide you and help you review the life just lived. So you can understand that relationship you had with that difficult relationship you had with your son, or why you and your mother-in-law just hated each other, or why all your bosses were so mean to you. Maybe it would be wonderful if you could get greater insight so that when you reincarnate, you come back, that maybe you can view your life a little differently. And there's another element here regarding karma, and that is if you're a ghost and you're haunting someone and you continue to haunt them day and night, you as a ghost incur karma. And if you didn't know that you could cross over, okay, well, there's
mitigated karma factors
and mitigation. Yeah. But, if we could put this word out, and that's why we're so grateful to Transformation Talk Radio for the opportunity to share this information, which is the height of compassion.
Yeah.
It's the compassion you want for yourself.
It really is. So we both talk to the dead. We both listen to their stories because we want to know more. So let's talk about some of the factors that can happen to make a person possibly not cross over. One a sudden death. You're suddenly ejected out of your body. We're talking about the mine in Brazil or a tsunami or even a car accident. You're walking down the road and a car hits you. You don't know you're dead. You were just, knocked out of your body. And now in fact, I remember on a trip that we went to Quartzsite a few years ago, we came upon an accident that had just happened. And this ghost was so angry, and he's we could see the ghost who died in this accident, and he's yelling at the police officer to use his cell phone because he's late for work. It was a truck full of drywall, and it was all over the freeway. And he's getting madder and madder and madder at the police officer, but he doesn't know he's dead.
I've seen that repeatedly. The person has no idea.
When that person doesn't cross over in that location along the freeway, we start to build up something called predecessor energy, which is something we'll be discussing. And that's why we have a lot of those dead man curves or those areas where there's always an accident where somebody dies.
How many accidents have to be? You had this in Poway. Had one corner where there were 6 or 7 accidents because that energy.
It's on Twin Peaks. There's something there energetically that just causes the bad drivers or speeders or whatever too, but there's always an accident.
My brother worked in Hollywood, and he called me really upset one night, and he said, we just found out that this producer, her car broke down, and she was on the side of the road, and somebody sideswiped her car and killed her. And he said, I just feel terrible about this. She was a really good person. And so we found her through a connection, and she was she still thought she was on her cell phone. Couldn't figure out why she had no reception, trying to get someone to come and help her. And when we brought this big 7-foot angel in, she's like, oh my gosh, you mean I died? You don't understand. She was trying to get, it was as if somehow I had some influence.
You had some negotiating power.
You don't understand. I have a meeting tomorrow. I can't be dead. You just, you don't understand. I have a meeting tomorrow in Hollywood, and I have to go.
And that's one thing that can happen as to why a soul doesn't cross over. Children often don't cross over because they're looking for an adult in their life. That's another reason. We've talked about the born in sin and die in sin. So there's a lot of reasons. And to go over those even more, you can check out the books, Ghost Stories from the Ghost Point of View, volumes 1, 2, and 3. And each book will have 21 unique ghost stories that are true, with a spiritual science lesson at the end of them as well. So it's not just the ghost story, but you're also getting a lot of really good, rich information.
And as we are winding up our show today on time, it's on time, we want to go back to the science element. And I think it's important to look at the fact that sometimes science and religion partner to deny a person what they might inherently sense. Science says there's no such thing as ghosts, and religion says there's no such thing as ghosts, but you sense it. You know that's true. And so if you force the science issue, energy is neither created nor destroyed, I got into a lot of trouble in school with that one. You push back a little bit and say, I think that needs another look.
And there's a lot of psychology that goes along with religion. It influences us. It's about, trying to live our best lives possible, but sometimes that guilt can be hurtful or harmful.
And so for the spiritual element, when you take away the psychological hocus pocus and the bigotry of some of the science elements and some of the, I don't want to look at this elements in religion, you begin to open the door to understanding and the uniting all 3 of these elements. So let's finish this up with, we are ordinary people seeking the greatest good for the most people by studying the laws of karma in the normal and the paranormal world.
Those 2 worlds actually are highly related. And we want to remind everybody to check out the books, Ghost Stories from the Ghost Point of View. And please say hi to us, and we'll put your name in the drawing for next week's books.
And a special thank you to our aromatic sponsors, the Oil Lounge, and a special thank you to Kat Grebe, our producer. And you're listening to The Karmic Path, and thank you so much for joining us this week.
Thank you for spending time with us on the Karmic Path Radio Show. Listen live every Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific Time as we explore the fascinating elements of karma and how to make those critical connections between spirituality, science, and psychology. Both of us are seasoned psychics living ordinary lives in public education and the military. Tina and I both have a deep-rooted dedication to learning how the unseen world works and to share this knowledge. Learn how to create a heightened sense of understanding and karmic awareness for greater personal balance with the Karmic Path. For more information, visit thekarmicpath.com.